Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that the Panama Canal connects the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean by way of the Caribbean Sea? Learn how it took up to 6,000 men working day and night to excavate a 9-mile stretch of land, while 5,600 workers died building the canal. Discover that an average of 36 vessels pass through the canal each day, with 13,000 to 14,000 ships passing through the canal each year.
So, if you bought a banana recently, or maybe a flat-screen TV, or even a car this year, there's a very good chance that item took a ride through a specific 50-mile ditch in Central America before it got to you.
Oh, yeah. It's basically the artery of the world.
Ugh.
I mean, it's hard to overstate it because if that ditch closes, the global economy essentially catches a cold.
We are, of course, talking about the Panama Canal, but today we aren't just looking at it as a shipping lane. We are doing a deep dive into what is arguably one of the most insane engineering feats in human history.
It really is.
I mean, back in 1994, the American Society of Civil Engineers didn't just call it a big project. They officially recognized it as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world.
And rightfully so. When you look at the sources we've pulled for today, the sheer scale is just baffling. We are talking about physically slicing a continent in half.
Right, and the mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly how they did it. We want to take you, the listener, through how a 20-mile wide strip of land completely changed global navigation forever.
From a diplomatic purchase in 1904 to a modern engineering marvel.
Exactly. And we're going to cover the engineering, the medical breakthroughs, the massive human cost, and the shifting geopolitical landscape, all without the dry jargon of a textbook.
So no pop quizzes, I promise.
So let's orient you. We are setting the stage on February 23 in 1904. The United States drops $10 million to buy the Canal Zone.
Which was a staggering amount of money back then.
Huge. But they weren't buying a blank canvas.
Right. Not at all. They were buying a graveyard.
Right, because the dream of linking the Atlantic and Pacific wasn't new in 1904.
Not even close. The idea actually dates way back to the early 1700s. And if you think about the stakes, it makes total sense. Before the canal, if you wanted to move cargo from New York to San Francisco, you had to sail around Cape Horn.
Which is the southern tip of South America.
Right, and that took 2 entire weeks of sailing in some of the most freezing, treacherous waters on Earth.
So a canal would cut that transit time to what, like 8 or 10 hours?
Exactly. Just 8 to 10 hours. That's a leap in efficiency that just changes everything.
But the U.S. wasn't the first to try. The French actually took a swing at it first from 1881 to 1889.
And the French were the engineering heavyweights at the time. They had just finished the Suez Canal.
So they figured, why not do it again?
Right. But they ran into a brutal reality check. The sources highlight a key statistic here. The French project was completely abandoned after suffering 20,000 deaths.
20,000.
Yeah, 20,000. It's a sobering number. And that high casualty rate really sets the stage for the immense danger the Americans were walking into. The jungle was just completely unforgiving.
So then the U.S. steps in. President William McKinley initially gets the plans rolling, but the actual construction kicks off under Theodore Roosevelt's second term in 1904.
Right. Roosevelt saw this as absolutely critical for trade and for the Navy.
But the first year under the Americans, it looked like they were just going to repeat the French failure, right?
It did. There was chaos disease, and they weren't making much progress. But then they bring in a new chief engineer, John Frank Stevens. He ran the show from 1905 to 1907.
And Stevens was a railroad guy.
Exactly. He had previously built the Great Northern Railway, which was considered the best engineered railroad in the U.S., and his methodology was completely different.
How so?
Well, he didn't just yell at the guys to start digging faster. He stopped the excavation. He ordered new equipment, recruited West Indian laborers, and devised entirely new labor methods. He approached it as a logistics problem.
Like a giant conveyor belt.
Yes. If you can't move the dirt out of the way, digging is useless.
Yeah.
So he fixed the railroad first.
And once that was sorted, they hit the hardest part. The 9-mile stretch through the Continental Divide.
The Kula Cut. This is where the intensity of the excavation is just hard to comprehend. According to our sources, operations ran around the clock.
24/7.
Yep. Up to 6,000 men working on a single shift.
That's incredible.
And the hazards were constant. They were dealing with massive landslides that would wipe out months of work overnight, and dynamite explosions were a daily threat.
But the dynamite and the landslides weren't actually the biggest threats, were they?
No. The invisible enemy was far worse.
Right, the medical war. Because again, 20,000 French workers didn't die from just landslides.
They died from yellow fever and malaria. And at the time, people didn't fully understand how it was spreading.
But our sources introduce a key figure here.
Yeah.
Dr. William Gorgas.
The sanitary officer.
Yeah.
Gorgas understood that the threat was mosquitoes, and he implemented massive sanitation efforts.
Like what exactly?
Total eradication protocols. They were fumigating homes and systematically cleansing pools of standing water everywhere. If a puddle couldn't be drained, they coated it in oil to kill the larvae.
And it worked.
It worked incredibly well. The result was that cases of malaria dropped significantly over the next 10 years. It made the construction physically possible where the French had failed.
So with the logistics humming and the workers surviving, we have to look at how this thing actually works. Because as you said earlier, the canal isn't just a flat ditch.
Right, and this goes back to the geography problem. The French tried to dig a flat sea level ditch. But Panama has hills, raging rivers, and the Continental Divide. You can't just cut a flat line through that.
So what was the American solution?
The lock system. Instead of cutting down to sea level, they decided to raise the ships up.
It's basically a massive water elevator.
Exactly. Ships must be raised to the level of Gatun Lake, which is a man-made lake 80 feet above sea level. They sail across the lake, and then they're lowered back down on the other side.
And the construction of these locks began in 1909, right?
Yes. And the specs on these are just phenomenal. They were built in pairs, so traffic could move both ways. Each lock chamber is 110 feet wide and 1,000 feet long.
1,000 feet? You could fit a skyscraper in there.
Easily. And they handle a height variation of 47 to 82 feet.
And how are they moving all that water? Because I remember reading there are no massive water pumps.
That's the genius of it. The mechanism relies entirely on gravity. They built these giant culverts inside the concrete walls, and they adjust the water levels using electric control boards.
So they just open a valve and gravity fills or drains the lock?
Precisely. It lifts massive cargo ships using nothing but the natural flow of water.
So let's fast forward to the finish line, opening day.
August 15th, 1914. The Panama Canal officially opens with the first ship passing through.
But let's talk about the cost, because the numbers in the source material are staggering.
Financially, the total cost exceeded $350 million. At the time, that made it the most expensive U.S. construction project up to that date.
And the human cost, even with Gorgas's medical breakthroughs.
It was still high. Approximately 5,600 workers died during the U.S. construction phase between 1904 and 1913.
So you have to honor that sacrifice when you think about the fact that today the canal sees an average of 40 ships per day.
Right? Which translates to nearly 14,000 ships per year. It fundamentally altered global commerce.
Now we need to pivot because there's a whole other layer to this deep dive, the geopolitical landscape.
Yeah, we have to revisit that 1904 treaty.
Because it wasn't just a simple real estate transaction.
Far from it. The initial agreement granted the U.S. exclusive and permanent possession of the land in the Canal Zone. In return, the U.S. agreed to safeguard Panama's independence.
But our sources are very clear about the tension this caused. Many Panamanians viewed this arrangement as a direct infringement on their national freedom.
And you can understand why. You have a foreign power exercising permanent sovereign control over a strip of land right through the middle of your country.
So this resentment builds for decades, until we see a massive shift.
Right. Fast forward to September 7, 1977.
President Jimmy Carter.
Yes. President Carter signed two critical agreements, the Panama Canal Treaty and the Neutrality Treaty.
And what was the core promise of those treaties?
The promise was to officially hand over control of the canal to Panama by the year 2000.
So it wasn't an overnight switch?
No, it was a phased transition. There was joint control for a period, which eventually led to a full takeover by the Panamanian government in 1999.
So as of today, the U.S. has no ownership?
None. It is now completely managed by the government-owned Panama Canal Authority. And they've done an incredible job maintaining and even expanding it.
So to recap this incredible journey for you listening, we started with a deadly French failure that cost 20,000 lives. Then we saw a $350 million American engineering triumph built on the backs of thousands of workers.
And finally, its evolution into a fully sovereign asset of the nation of Panama.
It's a massive arc. And when looking at the sources, there's a really interesting reflection on the bigger picture here, specifically the theme of unity.
Yeah, the sources point out how perfectly the canal embodies that idea. Physically, it unites two massive oceans and brings the world closer together.
Hmm.
But politically, it's also a story of how the U.S. and Panama eventually found a way to work together.
Transitioning from that permanent possession model to a mutual agreement.
Exactly. It shows that even deeply entrenched geopolitical tensions can evolve into cooperation.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. We live in a world driven by fierce competition. We face monumental global challenges, whether that's resource scarcity or climate adaptation.
Really complex issues.
Right. So, considering what we discussed today, what other impossible global challenges could be solved if nations viewed cooperation as an engineering tool just as vital as dynamite or steam shovels were in Panama?
That's a great question to end on. Because the canal proves that when humanity actually pools its resources and expertise, we can literally reshape the world.
We really can. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We highly recommend you go look up some photos of the original Calibra cut. It will blow your mind.
It really will.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.